Does the Las Vegas heat scare you at all?
I told somebody this before. I think it's just how you prepare. I think you got to kind of be careful what you do in batting practice, and you don't want to not do anything in batting practice, but you got to kind of take that into consideration. You don't want to be dehydrated, before you actually go into the game, because I know I did that last year as a visiting guy. Probably took too many ground balls or too many swings, and if you're out in the sun, it's 120 degrees. You got to be careful and just save your bullets for the game.
Hope for some cloud cover there. Let me ask you, in the news lately, it's been about these unwritten rules of baseball. Spring training, there was a 3-0 count. One team was up a lot. The guy swung, and there was a big brouhaha. Do coaches or managers go over some of these things, or is it just ingrained in some of these since you were a youngster?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's certain situations where if something like that happens, that's a big no-no. If that happened against us, if somebody's beating us pretty handily and somebody's swinging a 3-0 pitch, I'd pretty much guarantee I'd run out to the mound and tell them to, drill them in the ear. There's certain things, you should know as a player, but it happens. Obviously some guys don't know those rules. I know the Alex Rodriguez thing, running over the mound.
That's what I was going to ask next, yeah.
That's kind of an unwritten rule that's not really known, but I knew it as a player, that's their mound, they'll kind of get upset. Because, their toe hold on the mound, if we mess it up, it would be kind of like somebody running across shortstop and kicking dirt. Making it so that I'm going to get a bad hop next ground ball. It's just little things like that most players know, but sometimes even the best guys in the game don't know.
Well, Jim Leland, who was the own players coach, went crazy. If you saw something like that, then would you think, okay, it's being handled then?
Yeah, I would think so. I'm pretty sure the manager would take care of it. They would kind of take that guy aside and be like, hey, listen, what's going on? I've been in so many situations. Escobar, I played with him in 2007, and he tagged up for me. I hit a little weak fly ball to center with the bases loaded. We were up by 12 runs, and he tagged up, got thrown out at home plate, and Bobby Cox took him aside and asked him, what were you doing? What are you thinking? You can't be doing that. It was the 7th inning. And his response was he wanted to get me an RBI. He goes, I like Woody. I wanted to get him an RBI. And so, he didn't know that you weren't supposed to do it, so I'm sure he won't do it again. But it happens in the game a lot.
That's funny because you can probably tell by my physique I don't play a lot of baseball, but I play a lot of fantasy baseball, and I would have been the same thing. I'd be like, come on, swing the bat.
Well, of course. I play fantasy football, so when they're running out the clock on the 4-yard line and it's 3rd and 1, and they just sit on it instead of handing it to the running back that I have, when I'm down by 4 points in my game.
Right.
I'm like, why don't you just hand it off to him and let him score? But it's just little things like that. You got to still play the game. So obviously this game's about numbers, but in certain situations, it's about team and protecting the game and the integrity of the game, and certain players should be aware of these things.
Who was your best player last year in fantasy football?
I didn't have a team last year.
Taking it off.
First time in 5 or 6 years. I promised my wife I wouldn't all off season. We just had our 3rd kid, and
you're busy enough.
It took too much time. Those fantasy teams, if you want to succeed, you have to do your homework. So I took last year off, but I really enjoy it.
It's fun. I'll tell you what, fantasy football to me seems like a lot of luck. Fantasy baseball, I finish middle of the pack all the time. That is work because it's really a grind.
Yeah. I've never been in a fantasy baseball league, but I've had a lot of people tell me, that either had me on their team or, hey, you need to hit more triples or you need to hit, you need to steal some more bases. I'm like, okay.
Right. I wasn't going to do that, but since you're on my fantasy team.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything crazy going on in the stands and, you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on there? Anything unusual?
In this stadium, no, but, in the past, there's been plenty. I played in New York a couple years, and that was pretty, New York Mets, Yankees games. There's a fight every 5 minutes. You look and you just see, people turning around and everybody, you hear just a ruckus going on, and you just see some guy falling down the steps and just fights everywhere.
Any superstitions?
Not a whole lot. I've kind of gotten rid of them. Early in my career, I tried to eat the same thing, kind of had the same routine. And, I looked back and I'm kind of not, it's not about that. It's more about me just being ready to play, Because if you can get caught up in all that, okay, well, if I got 2 hits last night, I'm going to, put my pants on the same way or put my underwear on the same way. It's a little bit stressful when you start thinking along those lines.
Well, it's funny. As a fan, I often do that too. If I'm sitting in this chair and they're losing, I'll move there. I'll turn off the game altogether.
As a fan, it's a different story.
Yeah, because there's no control.
I'm a big Raider fan, so it's out of your hands. So
I'm a big Raider fan too.
There you go.
Talk about fights and fun things to see.
Exactly. So we've had a rough go the last 8 or 9 years. So last year was better. We finished 500.
And still, the cable man
He gets fired. Yeah, I don't understand that. Best record in 9 years and you get fired. But as a fan, I definitely have superstitions because you tend to. I'm a big Laker fan too, so you see them playing. Grew up in LA.
Me too. San Bernardino's, but I always say LA because the Inland Empire and people.
Oh, San Gabriel Valley. I tell people the same thing.
There you go. Well, that's cool. Now, so there's no way you're a Cub fan then when you were growing up.
No, I was a big Oriole fan, big Ripken fan growing up. So obviously I was an Oriole fan to go with it.
And what are your goals this year?
Just to play, just to do what I can to obviously play as well as I can, and help these young kids out, and kind of give them my wisdom and share some stories with them. Just let them know how to play the game the right way, and obviously win. That's the one thing I wanted to preach to these guys is, obviously everybody wants to get back to the big leagues, get to the big leagues, but it's a fun atmosphere when you play winning baseball, and that way when they get called up, they just take it. They don't have to change the way they play. They just go up there and help that team win.